Good morning! It's another Sunday. Welcome back for another episode of Live Well with Aromatherapist Jerby Go. And this Sunday, we will be having our Q&A with Salvatore Battaglia. In case you're living under a rock and you don't know who Sal is, Salvatore Battaglia has been passionate about natural therapies for most of his life. He holds qualifications in natural therapies, herbal medicine, acupuncture, and aromatherapy. Salvatore's dedication to aromatherapy has seen him hold positions in professional associations within Australia and government committees to ensure that the educational standards of professional aromatherapy are maintained and improved. Sal has been teaching aromatherapy since 1988. He is an accomplished author of many aromatherapy books, including Aromatry, and his latest, The Complete Guide to Aromatherapy, Volume 3, has been really making waves here in the Philippines. And with that, we've invited Sal to join us here in Manila, virtually, to answer some of our questions about aromatherapy. So for this hour, we will be hearing Sal and some of his fans here in Manila to talk about aromatherapy. So get your favorite tea, diffuse your favorite oil, and listen up and learn about aromatherapy.
Oh, that's better.
Hello! So the girls are already here. Are you ready?
I am definitely ready. So sorry, I just had to take little Lucy Peach for a walk, and I'm doing this from home rather than from work because it's just a little bit later. And you are well?
Yes, I'm good.
Beautiful.
How
I
are
can
you?
see everybody. Hello, everyone. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Now, you said you had some good news that the books arrived finally.
Yes. So most of the girls here on our Zoom class are actually your students because they've purchased your books. And we're also excited for your talk for our summit this December.
Oh, yes. Yes. Lovely. Thank you.
Would you like to share with them what's it about with your Zen of blending? Could you give us a brief background on what we could look forward to?
Can I start off by explaining, I've always taught different aspects of aromatherapy. Like, I suppose I really got into aromatherapy because I was more interested in the clinical side, because my journey into the natural wellness, the well-being industry, which is a relatively new term, came about when I was interested more in herbal medicine and I studied acupuncture. And then from there, I became interested. I discovered aromatherapy one day. Didn't discover aromatherapy. I discovered essential oils one day. And I decided this is way back in about 1980. It was 1984 that I discovered these essential oils. And I was just so amazed at the effect that they had on the psyche. And when I use the word psyche, I'm talking more about the emotional and the spiritual, the way that Carl Jung referred to the psyche. So I'm referring to the emotional aspect and the spiritual aspect of our well-being. And so I just fell in love with the oils. And I said I wanted to study aromatherapy. But guess what? There was nowhere that you could study aromatherapy in Australia. So I decided to travel to the UK to study aromatherapy in the 80s. And from there, the journey began. But my point is that not everybody is interested in aromatherapy to promote well-being. Some people are more interested in aromatherapy because they're into smell.
Yeah.
And because they love working with scent. And there is a little bit of a budding artist in us all. Some of us are artistically gifted through music. I'm very hopeless at that. I enjoy listening to music. Some of us are artistically gifted through the paintings, through the art that we can create, visual art, whatever form that takes. And others are very gifted, or would like to think that they're gifted when it comes to creating perfumes and creating scent. So in a way, the Zen of blending is not going to, because in 1 hour I cannot discuss how to blend therapeutically. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it's going to be a heavily focused towards using our intuition, because I love the fact now that some of the master perfumers in the world acknowledge that you can have all the science degrees in the world and chemistry degrees in the world, and that's not going to make you a good perfumer. What you need is very good intuition. You need very good people skill to understand how we relate to each other. So in one way, what I might do is also in the Zen of blending, focus on one particular aspect of how we get to learn how to understand the scent, and that's through understanding the various archetypes that are associated with the essential oils. And you see, I often feel like a fraud in saying we've created these beautiful perfume, or I've created this beautiful blend. And do you know why I feel like a fraud, Jerby?
Why?
Because I didn't create it. Nature created it. All we've
That's a good
done.
point.
Yeah, exactly. So I often feel like a fraud. So look, it's all about appreciating and getting to understand scent. Now, and the scary thing is now this is just meant to be, you have some questions, I'm assuming.
Yes, also some of the girls, but that's okay.
Yeah, and some awesome. I caught up with some friends. Some friends a friend on the weekend, and her niece, COVID in Queensland, went crazy through one of the girls' schools here, very well respected. It was the same school that my brother sends his children to. And the entire school and the families and the parents had to go into lockdown. My brother had to go into lockdown for 14 days, like quarantining, not allowed to leave the house. So we did little food drops and things like that. But one of my other friends, their daughter, actually, who's only 12, did get COVID. And so that poor family, they had to do a second round of quarantining. So they were in quarantine and isolation for 28 days in total. But it's now been 2 months since she has recovered. But there is one aspect of that one aspect there, and this has become common. 1 in 5 people who get COVID infection are likely to have and I won't say short term, because it can last for up to 6 months, loss of smell.
Yes.
You can experience a loss of smell, and it's very, very, and it takes a long time. And when you experience a loss of smell, you also experience loss of taste. So look, and it looks like it's got nothing to do, of course, it appears that the COVID virus, the protein receptors on the COVID virus, needs to bind on these protein receptors on certain cells, ACE2 receptors they're called. Now, they are not found. So the good thing is that it is not the olfactory neurons that become damaged in any way, but it appears to be the epithelial tissue underlying the olfactory neurons that has a lot of these ACE to receptors, and the COVID actually enters through that way. And so that's where the damage is caused. The damage is caused in the epithelial tissue. And this is why it seems to be taking a long time for people to regain their sense of smell. But out of those 1 in 5 people who experience a loss of smell, there's about 10% who may never regain their sense of smell.
Oh, wow.
So that is a shocking statistic. Well, that's what they're finding so far. So I hope this young girl, because she's only 12 years old and she's really become, it's in a way, it's really good that she now appreciates, because we don't tend to appreciate the sense of smell. If you ask anybody, I'm asking any of you, if you had to lose one of your senses, which would it be? 80% say straight away vision.
Oh my God. I can't do that.
80% say vision, and less than 4% say, I could, think that vision is the most important. Only 4% said that smell was their most important sense. But lose your smell, you lose your taste. I just think knowing what we know about the olfactory pathway and how it connects to the limbic system, I could not imagine losing the sense of smell. But it is something that happens to us as we get older.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Have you tried doing smell training with your friends?
Yes. And the good thing is, this is where smell training is very good. And smell training is also, smell training was actually developed for a whole range of anosmic conditions, not just from virus infections. And in a way, the xenoblending is going to be like a smell training session to appreciate the aesthetics and understand how the essential oils can combine together just to create an aesthetically pleasing blend. That's the main focus.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm sure our girls are also as excited. Lou, would you like to say something?
So I have a question for Sal, because
What?
I'm reading your book on the Psyche and Subtle, the volume 3, and it has a lot. I was mentioning to Jeremy that it has a lot of like ideas that I've never even considered in my life, that these things are possible. So you mentioned here that there was this book called Way of Doctoring that was an immense source of inspiration for you, and it started your journey into complementary therapies. And
Exactly.
Wondering, was that your aha moment? Like, what did you get from this book that told you?
So, I was talking about Dr. Edward Bach's book, aren't I? There, yes, And look, I was searching, Lords, and I was searching. I wasn't too sure where this journey would take me, and in many ways, I'm still searching, because there was never going to be a volume 3. There was simply going to be a chapter on subtle aromatherapy in volume 2. And then there would have been all the chapters on the chemistry, the pharmacology, the body systems, and so on. But my own journey, because see, my background originally was very science engineering based. So I come from a very science based background. And I remember just having a discussion with a colleague of mine, aromatherapist, and he said, "Well, Sal, you're more your pathway's taking you down the spiritual pathway, or more the subtle aspects of aromatherapy, where I'm deeply embedded in the science." He was telling me, and I thought about that. I said, no, see, that's the problem. We should never try to separate them. They are one of the same things. I suppose I've always been searching. I don't know what it is that I'm searching for in life. I'm not searching for this ultimate state of being, this state of transcendence. For me to understand understand why I'm here is important. And I'm still learning, by the way, Lords. So for me, when I discovered this book, it just made me realize that if I continue doing in my life, because if you read that book, if I continue doing in my life what I am not happy doing, eventually it's going to begin to affect me. It's going to affect my health. It's going to affect me mentally. It's going to affect me emotionally. And then, as Dr. Bach says, it will start to affect you physically as well. So for me, that part of that search, it's changing direction. And certainly when you see what, especially, I had no idea when I started to write Volume 3, it was only going to be 8 chapters. It ended up being 11 chapters. So it's been a fascinating journey, and I'm still searching. But what I'm doing at the moment, I suppose it's deeply satisfying. Now, if I had to rewrite this again, because I would totally, there would be so many new things that I'm going to put in, but I've decided I'm not going to do a Volume 3 second edition. Please make sure, can I mention this, Jerby? I will be posting on my blog and on my own, through my website, salvatorebattaglia.com.au. For example, a lot of people, like the industry that we are in is considered it's part of the New Age movement. And the part of the New Age movement has really merged with what you will call the well-being industry. Okay. And then, of course, and it's the whole aspect, is it naturopathy? Is it herbal medicine? Is it Chinese medicine? Every country has different regulations around these practices. But the point is that what is often missing is that deeper spiritual connection with understanding our well-being, that the role that spirituality plays. It's very interesting. I just recently did a masterclass on aromatherapy and mental health. And more professional mental health practitioners realize that spirituality is a very important component. We can simply not use antidepressants and analytic drugs to reduce anxiety and to reduce depression. A more holistic approach needs to help. The therapist needs to be aware of the spiritual component and how the spiritual disharmony, and this is what Dr. Edward Bach spoke about in his book and developed the flower essences. Of course, many aromatherapists have done the same thing with essential oils. We can begin, and with essential oils, this is where you cannot separate pharmacology. And that's why I decided to have that chapter in there. And I prefer the term, it's no longer just pharmacology, it's neuropsychopharmacology. That's why I included, when I was at a dilemma to say, shouldn't the olfactory system and neuropsychopharmacology be in Volume 2? Because that's the book on science. I said, well, no, this actually presents another very important aspect of how essential oils affect us, affect our psyche, affect our spiritual and emotional well-being. Sorry for that long response. There must be more questions. I hope that's helped to explain.
Thank you, Sarah. It's really good for us to understand what were the things going on in your head when you were developing this book. It opens up a lot of opportunities for us to pursue. Therapists as enthusiasts. So for me, it's really helpful not to be constrained by just this, or you need to be an aromatherapist. You just have to be following this. So
So I'm interrupting my own podcast to formally invite you to join our 2021 Philippine Aromatherapy and Wellness Summit entitled Wellness Beyond Intentional Oiling. This year, we have more than 20 international and homegrown speakers, including Salvatore Battaglia, who will be talking about aromatherapy and a lot of topics around it. If you want to learn more about aromatherapy, if you're a beginner oiler or a seasoned oiler, we surely have a topic that's right for you. So go and check at www.couchwasabi.com/2021summit and sign up. Even if you're not from the Philippines, we have options to pay via PayPal, and you can still enjoy all the 20 plus seminars, webinars about aromatherapy that you can learn so much about. We hope to see you there.
Look, and I see this a lot. I see this in a professional, a lot, and some aromatherapy associations are a little bit more open-minded to allowing people from different walks of life and different styles of practice to become members, whereas we find, and I'm not going to mention, please don't ask me to mention names, but perhaps some of the more British aromatherapy associations are fairly dogmatic, you know, in this is the only style of aromatherapy that we can, if you haven't trained in this particular pathway, we're not going to give you accreditation, for example. And I really feel what I wanted to do in my book, because everybody goes on about the science, some people totally dislike the science and feel that the science can get in the way of understanding matters which are more personal to the heart and more spiritual. But there is a lot of fascinating work going on. And please take the time, Lords, to read. Once you've read, like this chapter on sacred scents gives you more of a bit of a history of the role of scent within spiritual practices dating back thousands of years. And this is what got me thinking, well, you know, why was scent so important? And you know what? It doesn't matter which religious or spiritual practice you look at, old or new, scent seems to be involved. And there might be symbolic reasons, there might be metaphorical reasons for the scent being used. But is there an underlying neuropsychopharmacological reason as well? And potentially I make a bold statement in chapter 1 to suggest that essential oils, I believe, could be classified as psychointegrators. Michael Winkelmann is a person who's done a lot of research on some of the South American traditional plants, such as ayahuasca, for example, which have a very clearly potent hallucinogenic effect. But these drugs that are used in South America, all they are doing is changing our state of consciousness. And you know what? You know how I said that I'm on this search, I don't know what it is? When I discover something in my consciousness expands. And so when you take the time to smell an essential oil, I may not be tripping out and having these incredible hallucinations like I would if I was taking ayahuasca or psilocybins, but a change of consciousness occurs when I smell this essential oil. And this change of consciousness may help me on my spiritual journey, but it may just simply help me deal with the problem, the challenges, the stress in my life now. And this is what I love to see when I work with people who have never used scent before, and tell me, they come in and they ask for advice about how stressed they are, how unsatisfied they are with their work or with their life. And it's like when they smell the right essential oil that you've chosen for them, it just opens this door and they see things more clearly. See, smell can change. I won't say elevate our consciousness, simply changes, but it opens the door to another state of consciousness, which gives us the inner strength to deal with the challenges we do on our everyday life. But
Wow,
sorry for that. Yeah,
thank you so much for that,
thank
Sal.
you.
I have a few questions as
Yes,
well lined
please.
up. You mentioned that you came from a very scientific background, being an engineer
Yeah,
before delving into aromatherapy in 1980 plus. I saw on your
yes.
profile you're one of the
Mm,
pioneers in someone who's talking about the
mm.
subtle and vibrational side of aromatherapy.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what made you so interested with the vibrational, like the TCM, like chakras? What caught your eye? Is it somewhere through your studies in UK?
No, you know what?
Oh,
That was as an engineer. See, I studied electrical engineer.
mm.
So how is it possible that I am here watching you guys now and you can see me here in my home? Vibrations, molecules, electrons, this is how it's all happening. So,
Oh,
so it was really what I had been studying as an engineer that made me really aware of some of the early research that was going on within the industry in terms of, and this is why when I discovered acupuncture and we were talking about chi, I remember that just excited me. And some of the students would go, I can't understand this concept of chi. But to me, well, yeah, I can understand it because this is how radios work. This is how televisions work. This is how the internet, we didn't have internet then, but this is how the internet works. It works through energy.
mhm.
So that's,
And
yeah.
sorry. So in relation to that, Sal, I was reviewing. I'm enrolled in some of your classes on your master
Mm,
class, right? So I was reviewing TCM and biofields last night, and
mm.
this has been a question that's been boggling me.
Yes,
You
yeah,
talked about acupressure points and
yeah,
meridians in
yes.
your course,
Mm, mm,
and this is something that's bothering me because there are people who say, for example, we have very low dermal absorption on the soles of our feet. That's like the scientific side of it. But if you try to study TCM and meridians and
mm,
acupressure, we
mm,
can
mm,
acknowledge that we have a lot of acupressure points on the soles of our feet. So how do we
mm.
marry that? Is it efficient to actually put it on our feet or not so?
Well, isn't it interesting that it does? I'm not trained in reflexology, but I'm very much aware. And in TCM, there are not we do know, for example, there are a lot of reflex points on the feet. Okay, so if for those of you that have studied reflexology, you would be very familiar with this. It is very interesting that a lot of these acupressure points where what we are starting to understand about them is there are certain parts of the body, for example, that seem to have a higher, well, the cells in the body actually have these higher levels of activity which releases higher levels of biophotons. So that's why when, for example, you've seen in Kirlian photography, the hands, for example, so it's usually the extremities. So it is very interesting that in TCM, the meridians start and end like in the feet or in the fingers. So that's where they flow from the feet. And so it does make a lot of sense when we think of the body as this electrical circuit that energy flows through. But so these points that surface at the skin have a higher biophoton emission or biophoton activity. Now, it would appear that essential oils, for some reason, it's purely because they're very highly energetic, can, and I think I'm hopefully answering your question, can interact with the biophoton because that energetic field which has come to the surface either in the hands and the feet. So of course the essential oils are a very, very useful way of, the feet, especially using reflex points on the feet or on the hands, could be a very, very useful way of applying the essential oils. I hope that's, but please don't. I always worry when I see people applying, especially to the hands or to the soles of the feet, neat oils. So I'm not against applying neat oil to the skin. There would be certain situations where that might be applicable, but this is not necessarily one of them. So as long as the oil is diluted, it's fine to apply to the soles of the feet or the palms of the hand. Is there likely to be a higher level of absorption? Now, if we're talking about absorption, then we are saying, well, is there going to be a pharmacological effect? So we've got to really be careful to differentiate between what I call the more subtle energetic effect compared to the pharmacological effect. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much. How about the rest of the girls? Do you have any questions for Sal?
Or else I have some questions for you guys.
Oh yes, we're so excited.
I'll let you answer. I'll let you ask the questions first.
Anyone? I think they're shy, Sal.
Well, don't be too shy, please. You must have. So they're all studying with. Everybody is studying with you at the moment.
A lot of them are taking their certification with from another school, but I'm mentoring some of them.
Excellent. Yeah. And so can I ask, like, how does the average person in the Philippines, how do they view aromatherapy? Like, is it like something that will it be to go to, like, therapy? Oh, I'm feeling really stressed. Oh, I have eczema or dermatitis. I should go see somebody who knows something about aromatherapy.
Lou, would you like to answer that?
Hi, Sal. So I also finished my aromatherapy certification, and I'm glad to have the supportive community because I already got to meet a lot of people who are applying it in different ways. And when I started in this field, I was really shocked in the way some of users who have not really studied it formally were applying it. So I was really on the edge, like, why are they doing it this way? Because people are, I think, excited and very open to the idea that there is something that could be, smell so good and actually make them feel so much better. But sometimes because they don't really understand the safety considerations, sometimes they go into an overdrive. And there is a possibility of applying it in ways that are not, safe for the skin. But in the last year, I've observed that, especially through this group, because we came from, a bigger Facebook group where there are 16,000 members. And then I noted that a lot of people who are entering the use of essential oils have very, very basic questions like, can I use this for a baby? And then, and so,
of course.
So I see that there is a huge market for education, and then there is a huge interest to improve the understanding of how these can be used for well-being. So I see that in the next 5 years, there will be more practitioners who will be interested in exploring different paths, not just the pharmacological path, because a lot of these certifications can be expensive and prohibitive.
Can I ask you, is it okay, your training, where did you do?
I did my aromatherapy certification from Aromatherapy.
Okay, excellent. In the States?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I moved to a skincare formulation with the formulation.
Excellent. Yeah.
So now I see the different ways of approaching it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited
Yeah.
to see other girls are going to different schools.
Yeah. So I am assuming that what you were saying before, you were being very polite about this, but obviously the problem is that aromatherapy to a certain extent has been hijacked for commercial reasons and been exploited by multi-level marketing organizations. And that's a real tragedy. I've always kind of knew that this would happen. And the problem with that is that all of a sudden everybody becomes an expert without having that proper training. And as you just said, Lords, one of the biggest problems is making sure that the essential oils are handled safely. Now, we are seeing in many countries around the world, the phone calls to the national poison centres are just going through the roof, and a lot of them involve essential oils, which is tragic. So education and continuous learning is going to always be very, very important. And at the same time, there is a big risk. I remember I think I was one of the first to run aromatherapy workshops in Korea, for example, and that was way back in the very late 90s where I started to do that. At that first seminar that I did, which was at one of the universities in Seoul, there were so many doctors. Now, and look, I don't say this in a bad way, but aromatherapy in Korea has almost been hijacked by the medical profession. What I like about that is that aromatherapy, it's the doctors that go, my God, this is fantastic. We need to incorporate it into our training. We need to incorporate it into our practice. So there are, so aromatherapy is now for the NAHA is there, the IFA and so on. But the great thing is there is a very strong medical aromatherapy following through the medical practitioners in Korea. And I think that's very exciting. And this is what we have to acknowledge about aromatherapy. You're never going to be able to put it in a box and say this is where it belongs, because so many people, when we talk about I'm going to be doing this, and I thought it would be a nice way to finish the year with a more, not necessarily chilled out, but an approach to aromatherapy which is purely more aesthetic, like enjoying the smell and learning to appreciate how the smell, and this is what the Zen of Blending will be about, appreciating the smell and how it affects our psyche. So, of course, that pharmacology and the science is so important, but scent goes way beyond that. And this is what I try to explore in my book, Volume 3. I was reading just recently, there's been a couple of questions, so Jerby, we'll make sure we go through all the questions. I was just reading a very interesting thing. It's my favorite magazine, and it's published in North America. I think it's Canadian, and it's not a conspiracy-based magazine. It's always been a very anti-corporation type magazine. It's very anti-globalization. It's very anti-corrupt governments and corrupt politicians. And it's very interesting because it's saying we've lost our soul. Yeah, the current economic model is not working. Now they're talking about there's need for change, and they're talking about this paradigm shift and change in the way people think, but they sometimes like to bring it back to basics. And I don't know how it's a simple one-page article, and it talks about the word spell. Now, the word spell has two meanings. What are they?
As in witch's spell, and you spell a word?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, yeah. So actually, why did you say a witch's spell? You could have said a magician's spell, a witch, but, I cast a spell on you. And you know what? And because they were talking about, and this particular issue focused on global warming matters. And the thing is, the reason global warming is happening is we have become so disconnected with nature. And while there is this disconnect with nature, do people, will they really make a conscious effort to want to change the way they live their life? Because, it's got to start with each and every one of us, this change. And they said, and they're talking about the word spell. Actually, I don't know how it started, but then they said, when was the last time you were under a spell? And they were talking about, when was the last time you went for a walk in the forest, a walk down the beach? When was the last time you watched the full moon at nighttime or the stars? It's like they cast this magical spell on us. Now, essential oils, and this is what I argue in here, biophilia is the way in which we connect with nature, and essential oils are the way in which nature places a spell on us. And this is what happens. We fall under their spell when we inhale them. And that's how they, have this effect. Now, so I hope so. It's very exciting, but I think it's always going to be very difficult with aromatherapy to say it's this or it's that, because it's so many things to many people. But we have to teach people how to use the essential oils wisely and to appreciate them, to appreciate where they come from. Georgia had a question.
Yes,
what was that? It was a very personal question, I think.
Gail, would you like to send your questions?
Well, where was it?
Hi, Sal. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very excited to ask a few questions from you. So this one might be a little personal, but are there any particular oils that you can say have the most transformative impact on you?
Okay. Well, that's a very hard one. I'll answer that because I recently have just done like a little webinar on sweet orange oil. Now, it is just one of the most basic of essential oils, but I smell that and I just have this just deep emotion. Like, I've had a very stressed out year and I've been using yakusugi, I've been using oud, I've been using frankincense and sandalwood. Like, I've been trying to find these oils just simply to ground me. I've been so stressed with everything that's going on.
Yes, I can relate.
And then, of course, that helps. But then I just smell sweet orange. And it's like, all along, all I needed to do was just chill out. And, so even the simplest and one of the most least expensive of all the essential oils can have this incredible, just emotionally releasing effect on me. And so, at the moment, sweet orange is my go-to oil.
I'm also using the same oil lately because I've been feeling really down, and I truly relate with the stressful aspects that this year has brought us, and somehow I intuitively I felt that I had to use orange because it also corresponds to the color orange, right? Aside from the scent, and somehow the orange scent means like something you're trying to awaken your creativity and inspiration again. So I just and it worked. It really did.
It does. And it's very interesting because when you look, I suppose, have you read about the chakras, for example?
Yes.
Yeah. So you understand that the color orange, which by the way, is a very, it's the association of the colors with the chakra energy centers is a more recent phenomenon. It was only at the beginning of the late 19th century, 20th century that the color associations were made. But color is energy, scent is energy, and so the sweet orange is a good example of, and the Sanskrit word for the sacral chakra is actually sweet, refers to sweet, the sweetness in life, enjoying the simple pleasures in life, which is about having fun and being very creative. So, that's very interesting. So, look, I love the orange oil, but I also find I have been drawn to those really rich earthy scents because I have needed a lot of grounding. So as much as they're not commonly my favorite oils, I do feel nowadays a very strong connection to the scent of something like vetiver. And then there's always that memory thing, a very strong memory association. I've established a lot and have a very strong relationship with Japan at the moment. And so I haven't been able to visit Japan. And I have a place where I always go to visit, place in Kyoto. And Kyoto is of all the cities in Japan, is one of the most spiritual cities. So I haven't been able to travel to Japan. So what I've done is I've brought Japan home to me. And so the smell of hinoki wood, for example, and heba wood remind me so much of Japan. And it just is so comforting to smell those oils. So often we're drawn to those oils which are very, bring back some very rich, fond memories. Then another way of looking at it is, which is my to-go-to oil that just nurtures my personality? That's another way to think about the oils. And this is a really good workshop that I hope that I will do in the future. But to me, my to-go-to oil that just nurtures my personality is ylang ylang. I just love it. Now, a lot of male friends go, ylang ylang, it's such a rich floral oil, but that's not, how can you like ylang ylang? Well, to me, I just love ylang ylang. Even my wife says, Sal, can you stop using ylang ylang so much? It is just such an overpowering smell. Because she's far more introverted than me and likes that quiet time. But for me, ylang ylang it's an oil which is so extroverted, and that expresses who I am. Always before a talk, I will always almost douse myself with ylang ylang. So, yeah. Thank you so much for that.
I just want to say, your Allure blend is also my favorite. This is for sacral chakra. This is Sal's blend.
Yes.
And Sal, everybody in this room knows I adore ilang ilang as well. I also doused myself in that. I bathe myself in ilang ilang hydrosol.
So I'm assuming, because from what I understood, and this is very interesting, isn't it? Ylang ylang is, from what I understand, originated in the Philippines. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then something political happened with the French government that they were able to secure, I think, intellectual property of some sort. That's why.
And then cultivating it in Madagascar and so on. And the rest is history. But yeah, ylang ylang is, and look, and we're seeing this happening with so many of the aromatic plants, where they are no longer, where they're being commercially cultivated is no longer their country of origin or where they originate. Eucalyptus, for example, which is indigenous to Australia, less than 10% of the world's eucalyptus oil actually comes from Australia nowadays. Yeah. So there might be cost factors involved. There may be many, many reasons for that. Yeah. So there is Jen. Does Jen have a comment, or does she have?
Yes. So here's a question from Jen Ramos. Given that you have gone beyond just the scientific and pharmacological aspects of aromatherapy, what are the other areas of essential oils that you have not yet explored, or areas you are looking forward to explore? What are your next goals and plans in your career?
Okay, look, I'm in the middle. Jen's asking a couple of questions there in terms of areas that you have not yet explored or areas that you were looking forward to exploring, and what is your next goal and plan. Look, first of all, I've written volume 1, I've written volume 3, so I need to write volume 2. And volume 2 will provide a lot of this. Volume 2 is really the title of it. The title of each book, the subtitle is 2 words. Like Volume 1 is Foundations and Materia Medica. Volume 3, The Psyche and the Subtle. Volume 2 will be Science and Therapeutics. So it's going to have the chapters on the science and the chemistry, on the pharmacology, on the pharmacokinetics, how the essential oils are absorbed into the body, and then the therapeutics. A slightly different approach to Volume 2, where I just had the body systems. I'm going to reorganize the different sections on, whether it be gastrointestinal disorders, whether it be dermatological disorders or respiratory disorders or immunological disorders. I'm going to reorganize that section. So I am working on Volume 2, but Volume 2 will take some time. I would love to share this with you. I mentioned Japan before. And there is a very beautiful word that the Japanese have, which is called, the word is kotodama. And the kotodama, the Japanese have this incredible, it's actually complicated, the written language, because they have 3 characters that they use. The basic language is written in hiragana. Then you have katakana, which is for foreign words. So if, like, my name would not be written in the traditional script and there is no L in Japanese, so they say Salvatore, and you write it in katakana so that people understand that that is a foreign word. But then there is the kanji. The kanji is what the Japanese stole from the Chinese as well, because there's a lot of similarities. But the kanji characters have such a deep meaning. They have a kotodama meaning. Each word has a spiritual meaning as well. So kotodama is the spirit of the word. And this is, I suppose it's a Buddhist thing, when they wrote their Zen koans, for example, or when they would write haikus, the famous Basho wrote haikus. So I've decided, I have my business partner's nephew is he's won these awards for calligraphy, Japanese, for his age. And so he's going to do I've chosen these very beautiful Japanese words that really move us emotionally and spiritually. And I'm going to then associate an essential oil to each of these words and link the spiritual meaning of that Japanese word with the spiritual context of that essential oil. Like kokoro. Kokoro is something to do with the heart. But kokoro it's not the physical heart, but the feelings associated with the heart. So you tell me, and this is how easy it is, which essential oil do you think you would choose for the feelings associated with the heart?
I'd say rose. Anyone else?
Excellent. And Rose Otto, of course. You see, so this is what I'm going to do. One more. This is a project that I'm working on at the moment as well. So these 2 books have been written simultaneously, together. So when I want, it's like my exercising my left brain and my right brain. Another beautiful word that I would like to choose maybe is yugen. There is no word in the English language to describe yugen. It's like the closest word is in awe. And see, I use the word awe in the book, in that chapter 4, on describing the spiritual dimension of scent. We are in awe of the scents. But when we are in awe, it's like the experience that we have, it transcends language. It transcends possible belief. It's almost like unbelievable. When you see this incredible sunset, when you gaze out into the star and see the Milky Way and all these stars in the sky, we are just in awe, and we realize that we are so small within the universe. So what essential oil do you think could possibly reflect this feeling of Yugen?
Anyone else?
You don't want to... Somebody have a go. So Yugen. Now there's no right. Hinoki. So did somebody say Hinoki? Ah, okay, Hinoki.
Yes,
see, I would definitely choose a wood oil. So the oil that I've chosen to symbolize and reflect you again is sandalwood, because I do think and because it is, sandalwood has the smell of an old soul. I just love that scent, and so it just transcends possible belief. It comes from the heartwood of a tree. It is so difficult to grow this tree. Yeah, so so I love exploring and exploring different facets of scent and of aroma, of essential oils in particular. So these are some of the projects that I am actually working on. Now, of course, there is of course, for me, I love to do the education nowadays. So I'll be doing more education next year. Next year, I'll be working on. This year, I had the series of master classes that looked at the psyche and the subtle. Next year, I will be doing. So in a way, the Zen of Blending will be a little bit of a teaser for the master classes that I will be doing next year. So I'll definitely, I think, just you guys that have attended, I'll probably do a little special offer, because we will look at having like separate, because as I said, people want to learn about blending, but there's a different approach for blending, for more aromatherapeutic approach compared to, say, creating a perfume, or for creating a more subtle blend that is going to affect us more energetically. So the approach is quite different. So they're just some of the things that I'm currently working on. So I never rest.
Sal, everybody's asking, when is volume 2 going to be out?
Okay. Now, volume 2 will be a large volume. I'm probably 30% of the way through volume 2. It won't be out until I was saying 2022, but it won't be out till early 23. So we will have to wait till 2023 before volume 3. Volume 2 is out, yeah, but it will be out soon, yeah. So it sounds like a long way, but it's not that far away.
Any chance, Sal, that you will give us the electronic copy, even if it's straight from your website? Is there any chance?
You know what I will be definitely doing, and I need to be able to look at making because I'm just realizing how long it took the books to get to the Philippines. How much this book cost. It cost close to $50 to send by post to the UK or to Europe. Well, actually not 50, but about $35. It's expensive. But if it's available in a digital format, it's almost like the cost for you to receive it is it would happen so much more quickly. But it's a more interactive, because I consider it more of a textbook, it's more interactive. So I want to have a look at different platforms rather than your traditional Kindle or your traditional iBook approach for using it. So it would be good if it's like a lot more interactive. Yeah, as a book. So yeah, so I've realized that, and so thank you for reminding me of making sure that by the time volume 2 is out, I would like to see volume 1 and volume 3 available also in a digital format.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me of
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
we've been asking for the same from Anne Harmon as well for her Harvest of Hydrosol.
Excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I tend to agree. Thank you. But it will be, as Jen says, it will definitely be worth waiting for. Yeah, and please, and what I will be doing next year, a lot of the blogs that I will be posting and writing about will be following the journey of what I'm writing about. Yeah, so next year I want to kind of have a quieter year. It's been a very busy year for me launching the volume 3, and it hasn't given me as much time to work on volume 2, but it's been very important to be able to promote the volume 3, because I think it's a much needed book. And the problem is, within aromatherapy there are so many wonderful books written on the subtle aromatherapy, but I think very few of them have even attempted to integrate like the concepts of biofields, the concepts of TCM, the concept of mindfulness practices. They're all interlinked. Yeah, the practice of shamanism, most people tend to follow, practice more interested in, and I talk about this, like it's almost like culturally appropriating somebody else's traditions, which really don't belong to your soul. And so we, the Westerners, seem to crave other cultures, and then like recreate them so that they become westernized, and in becoming westernized they become almost commercialized. In my journey, and this is what I'm actually finding, and I talk about this in the first chapter in Reshamanizing Aromatherapy. I talk about, how if we are going to use another people's religious or spiritual practices, we need to be mindful and respectful of these practices. But why isn't that we can't go back? And in many ways, the spiritual, the institutions that control religion have become so dogmatic. But just recently, when I was writing a blog, when I was preparing for aromatherapy and mental health, and I typed in mental health and coded, and this on my search came up this book, bang, Julian of Norwich. And I said, who is this Julian of Norwich? And she was a Christian mystic living in the 15th century in England. Her claim to fame is also she wrote so beautifully. But she lived her entire life. She lived during the bubonic plague in Europe. But she came up with a phrase, all will be well. And she, as a part of her title as a mystic was she had received like these gifts from God, and that she shared her knowledge and her wisdom. And it was very much a nature focused, that the reason the plague is here is not to punish us, but to appreciate what God has given us around us, and we need to embrace it. So this is, and when you look at that, the early Christian mystics had similar beliefs to what many of the traditional shamanic people have, of what many New Age people, because when we look at the subtle aspect of aromatherapy, we could really say it's a New Age practice. We look at how we assign these various archetypes. And I love, and actually that's another project that I'm working on, scent and archetypes. And I'm trying to look, because there are so many different archetypes, and I want to focus more on the traditional archetypes rather than there's a lot of newer contemporary types. And it's kind of a new way of it's not a new way, it's a very old way of looking at the various personality traits that we might associate with essential oils. Hey, by the way, I think this is going to be for free as well. And I just want to mention this because talking about this, I have a colleague of mine, well, she does a lot of the training for me as well, Sharon Wood. She has written a book which, and it's now been relaunched, and her new book is absolutely magical. And it's the original book was called M Goddess. But this one, I forget what it is, but we're doing the launch on Wednesday night. Joby, if I send you the link, because it's a free event, it'll probably go for about 45 minutes. And it will be at 6 o'clock, so it will be the same time. It is, she just speaks so well, and it's all about reconnecting for women, and I actually think it's good for men as well because it helps them to understand the partners in their life. Because what she has done, and this is what got me thinking about it, is what she has done is she's basically looked at how, first of all, she's telling women to say, embrace the menstrual cycle. There's nothing wrong with you. So when you experience certain moods, there's a reason why it's like this, why you experience certain moods. And there are four phases within the menstrual cycle. And what she has done is she's almost assigned a different Greek goddess as the archetype for that different phase. This is how it came about, the project. But her work, she now teaches high school girls and kids, and just really because it's often considered still in the 21st century a taboo subject to talk about. It's like something private we talk about. You don't talk. You don't talk about the menstrual cycle or things like that. But Sharon has really made women feel more comfortable about that. So yeah, it's a wonderful book. I've just seen it, the new edition, and it's all awesome.
We're excited. I was able to attend Sharon's class under Perfect Potion for Rose. So
this will be through that. So look, I would encourage you all to watch because she's awesome, and the book is awesome. It's actually a smaller book. It's not a big book like mine. But what she has done is, and she was so surprised that she had all these ideas about, understanding, because a lot of her work as a therapist was helping women, to deal with a lot of the emotions and the physical challenges associated with different stages of the cycle. But now she was so surprised that what her concepts that she's come up with have been backed up by research. And so there's a lot of scientific evidence that's linking all of this together. So it's made her feel so excited. And that's what I was trying to do. Like when I wrote this, I said, well, we need to be able to back it up by what research is out there. And so you don't get research in this area by just going to the scientific research. You get the research from finding out what philosophers are talking about, and other scholars, other academics from different, not just the scientific profession, are referring to psychology and so on. So yeah, it's just so exciting. Yeah.
Thanks, Sal. We have a question from Bernadette. She was asking do you observe the same trend happening in other countries, more on medical or clinical practice of aromatherapy?
I wish I did. In Australia, I'm feeling a little bit despondent and brokenhearted because I feel that we've taken a step backwards. But I'm seeing more in Japan, for example. Japan follows a very similar pathway to Korea. And so, look, I do get excited when I see aromatherapy being embraced by health professionals. Here in Australia, look, aromatherapy has become very much mainstream within aged care. There's a lot of really useful applications for essential oils to be used in mainstream aged care facilities. So that's really good. But the problem is And I can only talk really about what's happening here in Australia. And I think it's become more that the colleges that deliver the education, it's all about the money and income and how, and there is more money to be made in getting a student to enroll in a bachelor program rather than a diploma. Now, Australia is very different to America, for example, where people just issue pieces of paper left, right and centre. And even in the UK but Australia, the education system is very highly regulated and you have to become a registered training organisation to deliver the education. Then you have to meet certain criteria to qualify to become a registered training school. And then the program has to be approved and endorsed. And we did that. But a lot of the diploma courses fell off the radar, and the big colleges that teach naturopathy stopped delivering them because they do not make as much money and they do not get as much subsidy. So every time a student enrolls in a degree in naturopathy, a degree in Chinese medicine or herbal medicine, and those modalities are far more accepted than, say, aromatherapy or remedial therapies. And as a result, what has happened is most of the smaller private colleges disappeared because of these rules and regulations, and that allowed multi-level marketing to come in and fill the void. So developing strong education system is important. But aromatherapy in Australia was going so well for such a long time. So many private schools taught it, and it was taught to a very good standard. So in a way, what's happening in Korea, what's happening in Japan, where I've never seen so many doctors interested in aromatherapy as I have in, say, North America or, say, in the UK. And not every French doctor is into aromatherapy, like even though it was Dr. Jean, we talk about Dr. Jean Valnet, and most, you've probably heard of, Dr. Penwell and so on, but not every French doctor is into aromatherapy. So that's, yeah. So look, I think there's an opportunity to rebuild aromatherapy, because I still believe that it is, in Australia, no other holistic therapy can act on the psyche, can act on our mental well-being as effectively as essential oils. And purely for that reason, and there's so much focus around that, and that's why I've had a big emphasis on mental health, and trying integrating it with mainstream mental health care professions. Yeah, so I'm seeing that's where I would like to see aromatherapy become more and more popular with those health professionals.
I think, thank you for that, Sal. I think it's the same for the Philippines. Aromatherapy here, we honestly, there's not a school that we can enroll from here.
Yeah,
so we all have to study abroad.
Not yet.
And I think Ira, I'm not sure if she can go or she can speak with us, but she has had an experience, because Ira is also finishing her level 2. So she is doing some of her research work for the paper, for the final paper. She mentioned that she's researching about ADHD and ASD in relation to aromatherapy.
Wow, excellent.
So in the process of her trying to get people for her study, for her research, she has had some brushes with medical professionals, and I think it wasn't really that pleasant of an experience, because here in the Philippines, the doctors somehow puts aromatherapy beneath them, quote and unquote.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I can understand that. I think doctors do that. It's not just in the Philippines, in Australia, and in Japan and Korea, or they put other people that do aromatherapy beneath them. Yeah. So I can see Ira loves Shinrin Yoku. A forest bathing, her little image is, So look, I think that's it's very important because each country has different rules and regulations, not just from an education perspective, but also from as a therapist perspective. In Australia, we technically still cannot actually treat a disease as such. As an acupuncturist or as an aromatherapist, I cannot treat a disease. But all I can do, what I can say that I can do, of course, I would still recommend eucalyptus. I will still recommend eucalyptus for a cold or flu and so on, and other essential oils and Ignatia as a herb. But I still cannot say this is going to cure you of your flu or cold or your eczema or psoriasis. So when I make a topical preparation with sandalwood and jojoba and calendula, I cannot say that that is going to actually cure or treat your eczema or psoriasis. Yeah, so we are still heavily around the world, aromatherapists in that respect, heavily regulated and controlled. But I don't want to get caught up in conspiracy theories, because at the same time, I do understand, and this is where some people have purely decided to become anti-vaxxers purely because they feel that this is the way for big pharma, big pharmaceutical to control the health industry and the health system. There are times when vaccinations are very, very useful. And we're starting to see that here in Australia as we reach finally, we start to reach very high levels of vaccination. And people are seeing that when you are double vaccinated, the risk of you dying is much lower. There is a chance if you are elderly and you've been double vaccinated that you might die if you have comorbidities. This is how virulent this virus is. And after all, the last thing that I want to see is I don't want to get COVID because there's a risk of losing my sense of smell, because for me, my sense of smell is my most treasured scent. So I hope that in the Philippines, you guys have had the opportunity. It might be more difficult to be vaccinated, because I can see that's going to be the only way that borders can start to open up so that we can attend conferences and events live. And look, I think you're doing an awesome job, and I am so excited that you're preparing this event for all the aromatherapists in the Philippines and people that love aromatherapy. That is awesome.
Thank you so much, Sal. We're all so excited. And I think that's one of our goals. You mentioned about education. Our group, APA, we focus on giving a lot of these free webinars just to reach out to people.
Yeah.
And we agree, both Lou and I, that somehow the MLM has hijacked how aromatherapy has been developing here. We've also had, to give you an idea on what the aromatherapy landscape here in the Philippines, most of the users are moms. I would say 90% of them are mothers with newborn babies, infants, or kids. And a lot of them don't really know anything about essential oils. And the basic things that they would know are from MLM. So that's really problematic. We hear a lot of moms saying, oh, I put frankincense on my baby's scalp to anoint them. Those it's a little bit wild. And we try to help those. So we try to conduct free webinars twice a month, just to encourage people to learn more about essential oils properly.
Thank you. That's that's awesome work. Thank you for doing that.
I guess that's the main reason why we were so inspired to do the summits. And we're excited to have you with us this year.
Fantastic. And look, and that's why I think the blending thing, people, I just want to be able to share some very simple, fun ways of learning to blend essential oils. But you have some awesome speakers lined up from what I understand. So that is fantastic. Wow, to share, because the more I think you can learn from others, the more you can then develop your own style and approach that's going to be very useful, and especially to meet the needs of your community, to meet the needs of people in the Philippines, because each community will be different in terms of its aromatherapy, what needs and what services and how we can support them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And anybody else has a question for Sal? Are you girls happy?
Thank you so much for listening to me rant on and talk. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to share just some of my passion that I have, and the journey that I've been on. I've even told you about some of my little favourite essential oils as well that are personally really that I enjoy immensely working with. But I love all oils. Yeah. So thank you, Jerby. Yeah. So look, to make it easy, I'll send you the link for that event that Sharon will, and I'll send, if you can share I've written a little blog for about this book that Sharon's written. So if you can share that would be lovely as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And hey, by the way, when am I doing the recording because I'm going to be,
Yeah, well, I'll message you on that.
Thank you. Yeah. But please, any questions? Look, just to remind everybody, any questions that you have, please don't hesitate to ask. My details are all there. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Sal, for your time.
Thank you. Please take care. Take good care, and we look forward to catching up soon.
Thank you, Sal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Care.
Thanks, Jeremy. Take care. Bye.
Okay, so I guess that's all for today. If you have any other ideas or questions or topics that you'd want me to cover in my future podcast episodes, don't forget to shoot me an email at couchwasabi@outlook.com or slip me a DM on my Instagram at jlian85. And I hope to see you on my next Live Well with Aromatherapist, Jerby Go.